Another month has flown by. We're now 2/3 of the way through 2021. That means it's time for me to stop and rank every August 2021 movie that I saw, from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your ranking of the August new releases that you saw. As always, my list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. Also, as always, I didn't see everything that came out. I didn't even see everything that I wanted to see. In particular, The Protégé was a movie I really wanted to go see. It didn't work out, so I haven't seen the movie yet. With that said, let's get started. In last place, He's All That, the 21st century gender-swapped remake of She's All That, the 90s high school adaptation of My Fair Lady, which was a musical adaptation of the 1913 play Pygmalion. Whew, that was quite the sentence to say. Now, as someone that was in high school when She's All That came out, here I am, and who listened to its theme song Kiss Me on the radio roughly 1 million times in the late 90s, it's not exactly like that movie was a top contender screaming for a remake in the first place. And somehow they managed to do everything wrong. The problems here are so boundless, I'm not really even sure where to begin. So I'll just start listing off problems. Right off the bat, virtually no one in this movie can act. The guy from Cobra Kai, he's pretty good. The two returning actors from She's All That, clearly the best two screen performers with the most charisma and acting chops. Beyond that, the characterizations are bizarre. Our lead guy is a punk rocker that listens to Bad Brains and Bad Religion, but before school goes and rides horses, but he's also a photographer, and he's willing to cut his hair to go to a Great Gatsby themed party. I mean, it's just a bizarre set of characteristics thrown together with no reasonable through line. The lead female character, we're told repeatedly she's a really nice, sweet person, but then she's repeatedly presented as this shallow, vapid human being that will use others for the sake of gaining new followers, and it's surrounded by shallow, hollow people that also only care about followers. Like, there's no actual logical through line for them as humans. And the movie's basic premise of taking an actual TikToker and making her the star of this movie violates its own message. So as you watch the film, you have people behaving horribly and in the most shallow way possible, living for more followers, people that don't even know them, and that it can't actually have the character change enough to have a satisfying conclusion. It rewards her bad behavior. It allows her to continue down this path of living for her followers and growing her audience. So it's a movie with a terrible message that can't commit to its message, with bizarre characters. No one is able to act in the entire movie. And the real mystery here is, how did the director of Mean Girls make something this bad? Number 6, Sweet Girl, an utterly contrived plot held together by cliches and coincidences. Virtually everything in this movie from top to bottom is ill-conceived. That was an awful lot of negative C words in a row. And this is also another movie where it's tough to know where to begin to dissect all of the problems. The basic premise of using an very violent action revenge thriller as a mechanism to comment on big pharma and the healthcare system is bizarre from the get-go. But beyond that, the movie tries to blend together a revenge thriller, a road trip movie, a father-daughter movie, a conspiracy theory movie, all together, while also wanting to have a blow-your-mind twist in the third act. And it absolutely does not come together or work on virtually any level. The big problem here, I think, is that they could have just made a generic fun action thriller, but they tried to be clever with the plot twist, and the plot twist undermines everything else that they tried to do with the movie. So all throughout the film, it's very awkward, and you're like, why did they include this, and why is this character here? And all of that is there to set up the plot twist, which might be the dumbest plot twist I have ever seen in a movie, that does not in any way assist the story aid in the message or pull anything together in a meaningful, interesting way. It's just to pull the rug out from underneath you, just to be like, look how clever we are. And in doing so, it just cheapens everything that came before. It makes it all kind of nonsense in light of what's revealed. And if they had just played it straight, not done the twist, I think it would have worked better. It would have been generic, but it would have worked a little bit better. Granted, Jason Momoa and the girl make for some solid leads, and there's no shortage of sequences with Jason Momoa smashing guys' heads in the walls or things blowing up or people running. So there is a bunch of icing around this turd, which is a weird analogy, but there is something to entertain you while you're watching this utter disaster of a plot. In fifth place, Candyman, and there's a big gap between Sweet Girl and Candyman. This one was very frustrating for me because aesthetically speaking, I thought they did a great job with this movie in the way the movie is shot, the way that it has kind of this highbrow vibe to it. It's not winking at the camera. It's not cracking a bunch of jokes. It's using the camera in creative ways during the kills, how it transitions from scene to scene. There's just a bunch of things handled really nicely all throughout the film that elevates the material in a lot of ways. Speaking of the kills, they're done in a way that's different. This is a genre where we've seen people being killed by slashers for 50 years now, and this movie finds a new way to show the kills and demonstrate them and place the camera and even stage the sequences, so it's something new and different with what we've seen many times before. So as much as I love the aesthetics of it, I just thought there were a bunch of other issues with the movie. For example, even as a horror film, because of the artistic way that it handles the kills, a lot of them don't have tension. There's sequences where two people are talking and then the lead guy's leaving, and as we're transitioning, you realize someone is killed, and it's like, oh, that's an interesting way to show that, but there's absolutely no tension whatsoever. Or other people that are killed, you just don't care about them at all, and they're just like these side characters that get wiped out pretty quickly in a manner where you're like, that was shot cool, but I didn't really feel anything as it happened. But my biggest issue with the movie is that the social commentary was just too heavy-handed. Of course, the original Candyman was soaked in subtext and undertones, all sorts of exploration, but it was all done through the story. And here, it feels like it's so on the, like, in your face that there's no nuance, there's no subtlety. It's literally characters standing in circles discussing the racial implications of gentrification. So once the movie's over, it's not like you can talk with your friends about the interpretations of the film and what did it all mean, what did you take away from it? No, the movie just tells you exactly what the writers and director were thinking. And so while I very much appreciated the aesthetics and the highbrow tone and vibe of the whole thing, there's some problems that really sabotaged the movie for me. In fourth place, Reminiscence. Now, this is a movie I was surprised to learn that a bunch of people really didn't like this movie. As for me, I thought it was a nice little change of pace for the sci-fi genre. It's noir. It's a detective investigation story with this sci-fi skin and all this kind of post-apocalyptic world building wrapped around it. And what if the world around us was terrible and everyone lived in the past and there's this technology to relive memories and see people's memories? And how would that play out with kind of this investigation type story? I thought that was a nice little change of pace. It wasn't great sci-fi. It wasn't an amazing movie that I absolutely loved, but it was interesting enough to keep me entertained, in particular because of the lead performers, because of the world building that took place, and some of the ideas being explored. There's just enough fresh things in there to make it a movie that I really enjoyed. It's also a movie that has great aesthetics. It was directed and written by Jonathan Nolan's wife, and the two of them are actually the creative force behind the TV show Westworld, and you see a lot of the visualizations in this movie and the way the scenes are shot and everything. It looks very cool at times. So not a great movie, definitely not going to be in my top 10 of the year or anything like that, but I thought a solid original sci-fi story, and in a marketplace dominated by sequels, remakes, adaptations, I was surprised how many people were so frustrated with this original story. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to join me down below in the comments section. Let me know your ranking of the August new releases. Also, let me know if I missed anything interesting. In particular, this month I went on vacation, a couple other things came up, and so I just wasn't able to watch as many movies as I normally watch in a month. And so if I missed something you think I'd like, let me know about it down below in the comments section. In third place, Don't Breathe 2. Now, I am a sucker for home invasion, simple revenge thrillers, so this movie was right up my alley, and I really dug it. I know the story is simple. It's not as good as the original one, but it delivered enough tension and kills and action for me to just have a really good time with this movie. And I think one of the things that helped it out a good bit was the addition of the little girl. Whereas almost all the characters in the Don't Breathe movies are bad people. They're robbers, they're the blind man who's done horrific things, and then there's the criminals in this movie that you can't root for any of them. So by introducing this innocent little girl who's the pawn of all these other people, there's someone that you do want to have a happy ending at the end of the story. So there's something you're working towards in the film, so you feel things as you move into the third act of this film. Actually, it's this whole second half of the movie. It's gut-wrenching, you feel sick to the stomach, and you hope that something maybe positive can happen with her. And that's kind of, I think, what gave it a bit more of an emotional punch for me, while all the nasty, violent carnage and twists and turns are taking place. Now, I totally get why some people are not okay with a movie where the blind man is a protagonist. I totally get where you're coming from and why that would be off-putting for many of you. From my perspective, I think the movie makes the point he's a very bad person. And all throughout it, you're thinking, this is not a good guy. He just happens to be maybe the closest thing to a protector the girl has. And the journey he's on throughout the movie is him accepting, I'm a bad man. And so I think that it addresses some of that, but I totally get if you're not able to get over that hurdle and that's too big of a problem for you. Totally get it. As for me, I enjoyed watching all of these people kill each other a good bit. Our runner-up, The Suicide Squad, a project that just feels tailor-made for James Gunn, and one that the universe, through a bizarre set of circumstances, created the window where this movie could exist. James Gunn is just so good at working with these ensembles of outcasts and weirdos and finding their humanity. He's also very good at working with comic book characters, especially lesser known ones, and then he's also very good at dark humor. So when WB let him go wild with the Suicide Squad and let him have an R rating, that was a match made in heaven, and the end result was this movie that was just gloriously gory, violent, and wildly offensive with a bunch of the humor and plot points in this film in the best way possible. As I alluded to before, one of the things he's just so good at is having these characters that are weird, like Polka Dot Man and a talking shark, and finds the humanity inside of them, finds that relatable element, and takes these bizarre, wacky characters and grounds them in the human experience. So even our talking shark gets this emotional arc about finding friends amongst the Suicide Squad. And Polka Dot Man has such a toxic relationship with his mother that defines so much of his life and the purpose that he views for himself. And he's able to give each of these journeys a big payoff in the third act of the film. So it's funny, it has a surprisingly large amount of heart, and it's just different. It provides all of the normal spectacle and comic booky stuff you're supposed to have in these movies, but at the same time, it's based also around old war films like The Dirty Dozen, and when you put all that together, it's just a unique experience. James Gunn was allowed to put his distinct mark on the film, and so it was a real pleasure. But coming in first place is Free Guy. Now, if you've been paying attention to my movie reviews and my summer movie ranking, you know that previously I had Suicide Squad on top, but after having a bunch of conversations, watching Free Guy a second time, I actually bumped up my score on it, and to me, this is like the feel-good movie of the summer. It was such a fun premise for a movie, executed so well, and even watching it a second time, there's so many more layers that you pick up on, more jokes, little things going on in the background that just put a gigantic grin on your face. Superficially speaking, it's just fun to see this world where you're in a video game and people are getting hit by cars and mowed down by machine guns, as this video game plays with Ryan Reynolds playing this nice guy. That's just fun in and of itself. But the movie has all these layers to the story, where there's a plot reason for what's taking place, where you actually start to care about video game characters that can respawn. It has a double romance going on in the story, where in a certain sense, it's the best rom-com of the year thus far. But it's also this exploration of what is life and finding your purpose and doing what really matters. And when you put that all together, it's a movie that just pulls a bunch of different emotions out of you, all while being a ton of fun, really funny, perfect sort of role for Ryan Reynolds to just go and do his thing. So for me, this is a movie that aged really well. I'm so happy that it's doing great in the theaters, and it seems like everyone is loving this movie, and I think it's the right movie for right now. The world might be wild and crazy as can be, but then we get this nice, fun piece of escapism that'll make you laugh, tug at your heart, and it's got some romance in it, and it's a celebration of life in this very strange sense. So it comes in at number 1. Remember to share your rankings down below in the comment section. Let me know if I missed anything interesting that you think that I personally would like. I also done a bunch of movie reviews on this channel, and as well as my Sean Chandler Plus channel. You can check that stuff out somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.